When most of us think back to fighting games during the 16-bit days, we reminisce fondly of Street Fighter II, Mortal Kombat, and the slew of brawlers created by SNK. Right around 1992, there was a major increase in the complexity and number of releases for the genre. I don't mind telling you that there was also a sharp uptick in quality. Street Fighter II was of course incredible, but even the most average of release were miles better than the stuff we had to put up with years earlier. That's no exaggeration. I hated releases like Street Smart, the home conversion of the arcade game of the same name. I also didn't care for Fighting Masters. This one was more interesting than Street Smart, but the control and fun factor was still well below my expectations. I didn't have much hope for the genre at that point, but I kept hoping to find something worth my time. It was around this point I found Slaughter Sport from Razorsoft. I had previously seen some magazine reviews that painted it as a decent game, so it was only natural that I give it a go. What followed was genuinely one of the most unpleasant gaming experiences I've ever had. A game so vile in its makeup, I found nothing redeeming about any part of it. In this episode, we will be taking a look at Slaughter Sport, an early Sega Genesis fighting game that is easily in the running for one of the very worst games in the genre. I want to give those of you with small children a fair warning here. I don't hold back and there are a few curse words strewn about for good measure. Viewer discretion is advised for this absolute shit show of a video game. Let's get started. The story here is simple. In the distant future, there is a place called the Blood Pit, an arena of death where 17 of the galaxy's best fighters test their skills against one another. Should you do well, you'll have a chance to face Mondu the Fat, the reigning champion. Perform poorly, and your death is assured. Gameplay in this one is a pre-Street Fighter II one-on-one fighting game where your goal is to defeat all the warriors in the tournament and then face the champion in a final bid to win it all. There are only two attack buttons, A and B. A initiates your basic attacks, which change up based on the direction you press when using it. Press up and A for your jump kick, press up and towards your opponent for a flying kick, press towards your opponent and A for a standing roundhouse, press down and towards your opponent plus A and you'll get a low kick. Press just down and A and you'll get a crouching punch. These moves can differ greatly between the different fighters, with even some being able to fly, but the core mechanics are similar throughout. Your B button is your special attack and for your magic weapons. Special attacks are character specific and can be anything from a projectile to a melee weapon. The C button uses your magic weapons where quickly tapping B cycles between them. Each fighter starts with specific magic weapons to that character. Magic weapons are also purchased with the money you earn by scoring damage against your opponents. After the match, you can visit a store where you can not only make your fighter more powerful, but also add up to 4 magic weapons to your arsenal. They range from freeze spells, poison, slippery oil, range extenders, control reversals, and even the ability to take away your foe's jump and attack. They only last for a short while and must be used strategically. It's important to note that you do not automatically recover life in between fights. You must heal yourself with your money, so there is a balancing act between attack power, life, and magic weapons. Starting a single-player game up, you are only able to use one character from the entire roster, Rex. The other fighters are opened up via codes that you earn from your victories. You get your first code after 3 fights. In the multiplayer mode, the full roster is open and you get money to buy items right away. Though there are 17 total fighters, half of them are simple palette swaps for the core 8. The final 17th fighter is the main boss Mondu himself. The single player game works on a 3-life system, which means if you are defeated 3 times, it's game over and back to the title screen. Slaughter Sport comes on a rare 5 megabits of ROM. The original Japanese version under the name Fatman shipped in 1990, and by the standards of that day, I wouldn't say old Slaughter Sport here is an awful looking game. Hell, I'd even go so far as to say the animation is rather impressive by the standards of the day. It has a separate layer for the backgrounds and the floor has some line scrolling to simulate depth. The real problem with this one comes from the complete lack of variety in its visual presentation. There are only 3 stages in the entire game, which is then palette swapped to extend that to 12, plus one more that serves as the final battle. This issue also affects the fighters. The core 8 are palette swapped to expand that to 16, plus the final boss. The second set of fighters have different names but the same moves, so it comes off as a shallow addition. I also felt the combatants were entirely too small considering they are the only thing on the screen that carry any real weight. The backgrounds aren't anything special, so why wasn't extra attention given to the sprites to really make the visuals pop? That leaves you locked in the same few rooms fighting the same tiny enemies for the entire game. The lone standout, if you want to call it that, is the automatic fatality of being eaten by a thrash shark after a defeat. There's a touch of gore there, but it's nothing special even by the standards of the time. All of that ends up just being disappointing, especially when you consider 1990 was the year graphical powerhouses like Strider were released for this platform. Even more so with the Western release, which had games like Streets of Rage out at retail in a smaller ROM package. I can't help but feel that far too much of the graphical presentation was sacrificed for the animation. This needed larger fighters, more backgrounds, and a lot more variety in the roster to be anything close to impressive or satisfying. For what it's worth, the art direction scores some points with me. It's nothing that stands out or is particularly special, but some of the fighters do look decent and have a fair bit of appeal. Outside of that though, Slaughter Sport is a dud in the graphics department. The music in Slaughter Sport is mostly terrible. Most of them are the same 15 seconds repeated constantly. Even the ones that don't sound bad still come off as lacking variety and they get old really fast. There's far worse music and sound effects on the Genesis, but this is still unimpressive and not something I'd ever listen to outside the game. Here are a few samples to terrorize your ears. I don't 100% remember how I first played Slaughter Sport. Whether it was a rental or from a friend, what I do recall is the sheer shock I felt at how bad this game was. I've spoken a bit about the presentation, but it's the gameplay that is bottom of the barrel and the black death of this experience. It's clumsy, chaotic, and completely spoiled by AI that fights cheap and is far more accurate than you are with the control. The moves list is also sorely lacking, leaving you repeating the same handful of attacks for matches that last far too long. As bad as all that is, it's so much worse because the flow of the action feels laggy and unresponsive. You also don't auto-track your opponent to always face them. If they jump over you or you turn away, you have to manually push the proper direction to face them again. Get knocked down and you're almost always facing the wrong direction when you get up. Turning around isn't instantaneous either. There's an animation to it that takes a second to play out. leaving you open to attacks. This can be infuriating in battle as you find yourself facing the wrong way far too often. Nothing is worse than being so close to victory in a tight match only to lose because your dumbass fighter is looking away from the action as you get pummeled, fumbling with the shite controls. Problems like that also affect the moves. Because you have to hold the button to get the move to fire off, you'll find yourself pulling off the same move consecutively, or missing the move you wanted entirely. Delving into the history of this game led me to discover that it was originally a product for computers like the Commodore 64 and x86 MS-DOS compatibles. It was released under the name Tongue of the Fatman originally in 1989, before being renamed Mondu's Fight Palace in 1990. The Genesis version was created based on those games by a company called Mediagenic, which was a precursor to what would become Activision. What's amazing is that those original games were positively received by a number of publications. I don't know if it was the era or low expectations, but I find it unbelievable that anyone could take part in this gameplay and come away with a positive experience. Here's the real kicker. Even the Genesis version of Slaughter Sport had a number of reviews saying it was well done and worth your time and money. Well, if my opinion means anything to you, this is not a good game. It is not worth your time and money. And frankly, it's one of the worst fighting games I've ever had the displeasure of playing. Recording the footage you've seen here was agonizing, and I regretted the hell out of choosing this turd to review more than once. Making myself try and get better at this gameplay was unsatisfying in every way imaginable, and by the end of it, all I wanted to do was throw the cartridge in the garbage bin to assure I would never be subjected to it ever again. Everyone involved in the making of this game owes the entire hobby an apology, and then another apology for waiting so long for the first apology. There are those of you that enjoy weirdly bad games, but even among that group, I can't see any audience for this mess. It's a dumpster fire, a blight, and an epic shitting of the bed that no amount of getting good can fix. Stay away from it is the best and only recommendation I have for you. I mentioned earlier that there were some positive reviews for this game. I wanted to focus on one because this is all the proof you will ever need for the debate that old gaming magazines either didn't play the games they reviewed or they were paid to review them a certain way. GamePro's 2-page review is glowing, leveling no real critique at any of its shortcomings. Instead, it praises the visuals and talks as if the rest of the game was a good time. I found no such good time. And even back then, I clearly remember asking, what the hell numerous times while playing it. Not even the multiplayer comes off as something you can enjoy with a friend. I guess it could be a laugh one night over a few beers for shits and giggles, but anything more than that will just lead to frustration as you struggle with the poor controls. Much like the single player, it wears out its welcome very quickly. That pretty much leaves us with the question, is this the worst fighting game on the Sega Genesis? Does it trump all others with its shitty gameplay and weak presentation? If there is a worst fighter on the Genesis, I haven't played it. Slaughter Sport's peak shallowness, lack of variety, maddening gameplay, and complete lack of appeal after 5 minutes in your console ranks it among the worst fighting games for this system, if not one of the worst of all time. I can appreciate those that speak up about the magical weapons and the ability to improve your fighter between rounds. It was certainly novel at the time, and something that could have been a strength if done well. Except it's not done well. In practice, nothing here works, so any would-be boons to its design are left with no bite and no lasting influence. Slaughter Sport is a train wreck, and you'll be doing yourself a huge favor by leaving it on the shit heap of bad video games to fester in the summer sun. I'm Sega X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.